Hey friends, I was away for almost 2 weeks and we need to talk about a few things here. First of all, I don't want to praise myself, but 2 weeks ago I released a video where I said altcoin breakout, and I meant in at most 20 days we'll see a major breakout in the crypto market. Take a look at this. In the video, we were right here with Bitcoin at $108,000. This is exactly what I showed you. If we switch over to the chart now, look at where we are. From $108,000, we've already broken our all-time high at $123,000. How crazy is that? And I predicted this for you weeks ago. I showed you right here that we would break through, retest, and then continue to break out. If you go down to the hourly chart, or let's say the 4-hour chart, you can also see that we retested everything again, just as I predicted, retested. And then the big breakout happened. Exactly what I expected. We've finally broken out of this larger resistance zone, and now this resistance zone has become a support zone. Very, very important. And just for this prediction from 2 weeks ago, I'd appreciate it if you leave a like and a comment here. And now we just need to talk about a few things. What could happen next? What does the chart analysis look like? And what do our on-chain data look like? Because as I've shown you several times before, on a weekly basis, we're still above the 50 EMA. The 50 EMA is extremely significant. We've already tested it 3 times in this cycle, and each time afterwards, we saw a huge breakout of over 100%, in some cases even 200%. We're still right in the middle of it, and in terms of timing, we're also in a pretty good spot here. We definitely still have plenty of time and plenty of upside potential that we can tap into with Bitcoin. If we look at the Coinbase Premium Indicator, we can see that interest is slowly being peaked. Institutional interest in particular is being sparked, and we're currently experiencing a bit of an euphoria phase. The funding rate is also significantly elevated, definitely strongly in positive territory right now, but it's not yet so extremely high that you'd have to say, okay, we need a correction. We really haven't reached that point yet. Nonetheless, market makers could, of course, already start to trigger a correction, but the funding rate isn't overheated enough yet that we definitely need a correction. That's already a good sign. To me, that indicates that there's definitely still room to move up. And what most people here don't understand is that with Bitcoin, we're simply following the M2 money supply because usually the summer months aren't good. Everyone knows that by now, but as you can see for yourselves, apparently the summer months are good after all. That's simply because we're following the M2 money supply quite closely. We're following global liquidity, and we're doing so extremely precisely. I've selected the indicator here and set it to 86 days because, let's say if I set it to 10 days, you can already see what happens. It's shifted. But in my opinion, the indicator is most accurate with a delay of 86 days. That's because we have a delay here. Global liquidity actually came in much earlier. But if you overlay the data, you can see exactly where the high was, where the bottom was even for Bitcoin, and since then, we've been following the M2 money supply extremely precisely, like really crazily precise. And if you talk about the future now, it's clear that price targets of $150,000 are only achievable if we continue to follow the M2 money supply. That's all well and good, but let's take a look at things in the short term. Here we can see that this peak was our all-time high at $123,000 for Bitcoin. After that, there was a small correction phase, but here we see another smaller breakout followed by a correction phase. And I believe we could see this breakout again in the next 1 or 2 weeks. According to the timing and data, this breakout would be exactly at the end of July, on July 31st. Accordingly, I believe that this week or next week, we will set a new all-time high for Bitcoin again, simply because global liquidity was extremely high at that point. After that, there will be a corrective phase in August, and then we will take another fresh look at the chart. Because even if we look at the liquidation heat map, we can see that most of the liquidity is right up here, and the market makers are not going to let that liquidity slip by. At least that's how I see it. I can easily imagine that we will definitely retest our old all-time high here, and perhaps based on the M2 money supply, even set a new all-time high in the range of $125,000 or $128,000. Both are possible, but in my opinion, we will retest it one way or another. And maybe we'll encounter resistance there and correct, or we'll break through it and set a new all-time high. In the short term, on the daily chart, we can simply see that we now have a fair value gap here. I could imagine that we might fill that again, but we can also see that we're above the 13, 25, and 50 EMAs. And that's very, very nice because it's extremely bullish when we're above those levels. If we were to fall below here now, we'd probably see resistance at the 25 EMA first and then break out again. And if that doesn't hold either, then at the 50 EMA. And that's why it's very nice that we are above these three extremely significant lines, which ultimately also show us the way. They currently indicate to us that we are definitely still in a bullish impulse. We would see a short-term correction if we break below the 13 EMA. But otherwise, I have to say, honestly, from a chart perspective, things don't look too bad at the moment. We're not overheated yet, not by a long shot. We definitely still have room to move up, and that's really, really nice. And especially when we look at Ethereum, you just have to say what has happened with Ethereum in the past few weeks is really crazy. We were already close to $4,000. And on the Ethereum liquidation heat map, we've also nicely swept up liquidity both to the downside and the upside again. You just have to say Ethereum has now become the alternative to Bitcoin because, I mean, just think about what has happened to Bitcoin since the ETFs. Bitcoin was completely pushed up. Many institutions have invested multi-millions, if not billions, but some missed the boat. Those who missed the boat are now jumping on Ethereum because they want to do with Ethereum what they did with Bitcoin. And that's pretty obvious by now because we can see that some companies are actually selling off all their Bitcoins and buying up Ethereum instead. What they did with Bitcoin is now happening with Ethereum. Really nice. And in the end, this is also giving a complete boost to the altcoin sector and benefiting the other altcoins. Especially when we look at the Ethereum ETF inflows, we can clearly see that a lot has happened in the past few days. Ethereum is now being bought up here. A lot of money is also being invested in Ethereum by institutional investors. There were even days when the Ethereum ETFs had more inflows than the Bitcoin ETF. We can see that down here as well. Take a look at it. In the past few weeks, there have been almost no red days for the Ethereum ETF. It's actually obvious what's happening here. They're now picking up the next narrative, which is Ethereum, and they're going to push it all the way up. And it's becoming more and more obvious because here you can see again, Trump's company is buying up nearly $5 million worth of additional Ethereum. Why are they doing this? Because of course they know what's going on here. Or just recently, there was another report that Trump's company once again bought up $2 million worth of Ethereum. By now, it's pretty obvious what's happening here. You just have to understand the whole thing. We've also now seen that Donald Trump has finally signed the Crypto Genius Act into law. And that's so great, and it's actually a reason to celebrate because it creates completely new conditions for stablecoins. Now, stablecoins are properly regulated in the USA. It stipulates that stablecoins must be 100% backed by liquid assets, and it also requires monthly public reports so that people can transparently see what's really going on behind the scenes. That's incredibly huge, especially for stablecoins. And we've also seen in recent months that stablecoins have experienced tremendous growth. Stablecoins are now an integral part of the market. In some cases, stablecoins are the only assets that actually have a real use case here. Just look at USD Tether, it has a market cap of $160 billion. And that's just because they're a stablecoin. Stablecoins are now being used in so many different ways, even in the real world and so on. That's incredibly huge. And things like this are what bring the crypto market into the mainstream and bring a lot of volume, a lot of money back into the crypto market. And with that, that's it for this little update video. As always, leave a like and a comment, and then I'd say see you next time, friends. Ciao.